Hello everybody and welcome to another special episode of Vibes. Now I wanted to talk about a particular topic, which is digital well-being and how that affects us all and what could be done to help us use technology in a much more healthier medium. Now I want to put it out there that this is solely my own opinion. I'm not an expert, but I just want to share my views. Now, this has been on my mind for the past few weeks, if not months, and it's something that has slowly grown in me to a point where I felt as though I wanted to share how I felt with you all. So this all began with me going to work on public transportation, and I tend to listen to music or I tend to listen to other podcasts. And I look around me, I look what's outside of the window, I look at the people around me. But when I look at the people, all I ever see is people's necks down looking at their screens. And as I'm looking around and counting, it's not just 1, 2, 5 people, it's everybody that I see on this public transportation. And it took me back to when I used to go to school on public transportation, as you know, when I was younger, which is a long time ago, where everybody used to be on these journeys, they used to smile at each other, people used to talk, and all of that is now changing. Everybody just seems to be really engrossed in their own bubble. As well as that, on my journey, I see that sometimes parents get onto the actual public transportation themselves with their children. You know, sometimes children are probably talking, asking loads of questions, and then they suddenly whip out a phone or a tablet and then give that to the child. Now, I know being a parent must be difficult. I'm not a parent myself, and I know that sometimes you do need that help or you need something to kind of give you that time. I totally get that. But when it happens all the time, for me personally, I'm not a fan. But you know, like I said, you know, if you are a parent, please feel free to reach out to me, you know, educate me on why that helps out. But for me personally, that's, you know, I just feel as though there is a disconnect there, definitely, when you're giving technology in that sense. Now, at no point am I saying that technology is bad. You know, don't forget, Mandeep and I do a bi-weekly podcast where we talk about tech. We love it. It's our world. We love to play with these new toys. But this is all about balance, you know, making sure that you have that kind of balance. And there's a thought, or there was a saying that a friend of mine, Lee, that I've known for many years, said that most of the things that have been successful in the modern world has been an addiction. And that got me thinking. I took a step back. An addiction? That's a really good point. Everything that does seem to be big in the world is an addiction. I really like that saying, and I don't know how you all feel about it, but I can somehow relate to that. Anyway, so we are now going to take this out of the whole public transportation remit, and we're going to look at, let's say, children. And there's been countless programs that I've seen on TVs, documentaries, TED Talks, where they talk about how unhealthy sometimes social media can be, for example. So you could be on Facebook, Instagram, you can be on other kind of mediums. There's loads out there, trust me. And sometimes a child may post something, but what would happen is if they do not get a like, if they don't get likes, if people don't view it straight away, there's a form of stress and there's questions being asked by that child. You know, do people not like me? Do people not like this or that? And as you get older, you start seeing images, and let's say Instagram, where you see models that are really thin, they have a particular shape. But what they don't tend to understand is that a lot of the images that we see have all been modified via Photoshop. So they've kind of cut corners or taken away blemishes or, you know, all sorts. And then obviously as we get even more older, we have friend circles and whatnot. What else do you see? You either see a lot of negativity where people are venting out about relationships or something like that, or you see the complete opposite where people are living this lavish lifestyle which may not necessarily be real. And this is the thing, it's perception versus reality. And right now, we're not pushing enough to say, it's okay to be you. It's okay to be the way that you are. It's okay to be unique. It's okay not to have items liked all the time. It's okay for something not to be seen, you know? And it just feels as though we're living in a society where, when it comes to social media, that 15 seconds of fame, that 15 seconds of being out there is really, really important. So for me, just personally, as I said, it's a personal thing. And, you know, when I have, you know, children that I interact with, or when I have friends that I interact with. And another great example is, you know, you could have a meal, a lunch, or, you know, whatever with friends, and you sit down at a table, you're there talking and the other person's on their phone. There is a disconnect, you know, definitely. There is a disconnect. I just don't feel as though that conversation could be good. And even though I say I have a great time or whatnot, I come home and I think to myself of, what exactly did we catch up on? Because most of the time it's just looking at pictures that they're showing me randomly because they've been on a social media platform. So the digital world definitely needs to be looked into. How we consume data needs to be looked into. But let's not hide the fact that we are consuming a lot more data than we ever have done, than ever before. We have access to information at our fingertips, and we've not had that growing up. So for the younger listeners, you know, you are fortunate enough to have that. But for a lot of people, we didn't have the internet growing up. We actually had to go to a library and get books. You know, things weren't as accessible as they are now. So obviously with the whole element that you can get hold of information straight away, I mean, that is great and that is absolutely awesome. And like I said, Mandeep and I are huge fan of technology, and we like the fact that we are, you know, we can get all of this. Now there's other pressures of where you might be hooked to your devices, and that would be for work. So sometimes, you know, you feel as though you have the pressure that you gotta have your work phone everywhere with you, or you need to have your emails on every device so that if someone messages, you respond straight away. Now, for a lot of people that know me out there, they turn around and say, well, you do that yourself. But I've done it in a completely different way. So I can talk about how I have set up particular lights in my room, or I've got lights in my bedroom, or I've got certain notifications that if I get an email from someone important like a manager or a team member that requires my attention, so I've got keywords, it will flash the light and I will know there and then, like, this is something really important to be looked at right now. But everything else is just kind of put to the side. So I do make an effort to disconnect. Now, the good thing about disconnecting and with digital well-being is that we have major companies that now recognize this. So Instagram is the first one, and we spoke about this in our last podcast, where they are now beginning to hide likes, and that's healthier. You know, there's no longer this whole thing of, I posted a picture of my dress, this person's also taken a picture of another dress, but they've got more likes than mine. Why? And you don't go through that thought process. So the fact that that's hidden, you no longer are comparing likes and looking at these things that people are saying, I like that. Sometimes what you generally tend to find that people just like things just for the sake of liking it. You know, so again, it's the whole, you know, perception versus reality element here. You have companies like Apple and Google. So Apple has something called screen time. So when it comes to iOS 13 and the next version of Mac OS and anything across the board, screen time is amazing. And I will talk about that in a second. But Google also do the same thing. They have something called Digital Wellbeing, which shows you how much that you've used the device and what you have been using it on. And you will see that more and more when it comes to later iterations. So if you do have an iPhone or an Apple device, I should say, or if you have a Google Pixel device, and other manufacturers do it as well, please do have a look at these devices and see if you have a digital well-being application or something that kind of monitors that. Now on Apple, with the latest version, I've had screen time for a little while, but they're extending that further. So what the whole idea of screen time is that you set a time and you say, look, from 9 p.m. to, let's say, 9 a.m. on the next day, I want you to turn off all of my applications, but these are the slight apps that I want to have access to if needs be. So you can say I want to have access to my text messages, probably maybe WhatsApp, and I want to have access to, let's say, the home application so I can control my lights. But everything else, lock me out. And what tends to happen is when you look at the phone, the other icons are grayed out. And then when you try to tap on the icon, you have an option of giving you 1 more minute, 15 more minutes, or to allow it for the rest of the day. Now, when you have children, as a parent, you have a lot more control, and you can say, right, I'm going to give them 15 more minutes after lockdown mode, but after that, nothing works. So, I'll let them have access to listening to music, but besides that, anything else is just turned off. So that way round, there are tools and functionalities out there that will help you control all of that, to help you have a healthier balance with the devices that you take with you at all times. Now, Apple have taken it a step further. It was originally on the phone and on the iPad, and they've now extended that to your laptops. So it could be the case that you can set a rule and say, come 10 p.m. at night, disable my Outlook so that I can't access it until the next day. Those kind of pressures are now being taken away, and it's great to see that there are companies out there that are beginning to take those steps to bring back a much more healthier state of mind. And when it comes to the state of mind, the questions that are being asked, and I'm not a professional, so I can't say, but is there a link to being on all of these social media platforms a lot of the time to mental health? I'm sure there must be some kind of correlation, but like I said, I'm not a professional and I don't want to just say something incorrectly in those terms. So, but I believe personally that there is a correlation between one and the other. So I am definitely going to say that I am really, really happy. I'm really glad that these technology companies are now beginning to look at digital well-being. Now, not everybody is tech savvy, and not everybody will know about the different type of functionalities or functions in terms of turning these on for the younger audiences, for children, for example. So I think one of the key things that must take place is that there needs to be better education when it comes to digital well-being. There should be classes, or there should be something a lot more accessible for parents, let's say, so that they can read something and understand what can be done to help control the amount of time, let's say, a child may be in front of a screen, or the amount of time that they're playing video games. The tools are out there today. So, for example, Microsoft and Nintendo that I know of have a parental control where you can limit the time of how long a child plays a video game for. They also can put their children as part of a family account. And that's another thing that I see quite often, is that you find that parents will have their own iCloud account and children will have their own, but the children account is like a full-blown adult account, and they don't have the education, or they've not been told that you can actually link that account to yours and specify that that's a child. So you can control what content they see, you can control what content they download, you can control how long they are on a device for, like I said earlier on. So does there need to be more work in terms of trying to get people educated about this all? And I believe as time goes on, this is going to become more and more of a topic, and there's going to be more and more of a push where things are going to be easier to manage and to actually control. And I believe another thing that would help is, how do we consume or make things easier and faster and quicker? Is there a way that you can just do something within a 30-second time frame versus a minute or two. So I also believe that a lot of organizations out there need to look into trying to make some processes a lot more quicker than they should be. So instead of adding new functionality, or instead of adding something, you know, out there different, I mean, it's amazing to see something different. It's amazing to see something new. But maybe there should also be a focus on making something quick, easy, to the point, where you do what you need to do and put the item in your hand to one side. I mean, there's a lot of push in terms of, making sure that mobile devices aren't used in cars, you're not on phone calls, because again, your concentration is taken elsewhere. You're not focusing on driving. Obviously, all of this is going to change over the years with self-driving cars, things becoming automated. And maybe automation is the way forward. Maybe automation is what needs to come in more for homes, for example, or for individuals, where things are done for you, so thus you're not on a device doing it manually. So there's a lot of things that have to be done, and there's a lot of things, to obviously cover with that. For me here, the most important thing to say is there's a better way to treat your tech addiction than just hiding your phone and laptop. That is not the solution. The reason why websites, applications, and devices feel so addictive at times is because they were designed to be made that way. And I think, like I said, with companies like Apple and Google understanding that, they're now beginning to take a step back. There is a lot more focus on health that I'm finding, which is a great, great thing. By using technology more consciously and obviously developing a far better relationship with the devices that we have, we can learn to have these tools to support our lives rather than to rule them overall. Even when, we leave devices at home, let's say by mistake, we just feel as though we've left a part of us behind, and that's something that we kind of need to move away. And sometimes having a digital detox is not the way forward. We need to do this the right way. This isn't a case of just going cold turkey and that's it. So there are a few steps on what you can do. So one of the things that you could do is, you should prioritize your direct communication over an indirect one. So, if you're sat in the same office, for example, instead of sending a message over Microsoft Teams or Slack or whatever instant messaging tool that you're having, get up, walk over to the individual, talk to them. It may open up a new way to solve an issue, a new way to solve a problem, or you may just on the spot come up with something new and unique. So I think to have more of that interaction is a great way of doing that. Another thing that you could do is, if you are in a social environment, so let's say if you have gone out for a meal with friends, or you've gone out for dinner, put your phone in silent, and put it in a pocket. Obviously, again, there are ways of, if you are a parent and you've got children or a babysitter, for example, you can actually silence everybody else, but have that particular call come through so that I mean, what I tend to do generally, and this is a cheeky way of doing it, is I actually have different songs for a different group of individuals. So my family will have a song, and it is really cheesy, and you can ask Mandy, but I have loads of ringtones. But whenever I have, let's say, my mum call, it'll be a song like, We Are Family, and I'll be like, right, that's a family call. Or if I hear, let's say, a Dr. Dre song, which I have for my work colleagues, I know it's from work. So that way around, I can distinguish something from far away without looking at a screen. So, that's something that you could try adopting and see if that helps you. Another good thing to go through is, if you are on social media, so let's say Facebook, or if you're on Twitter or Instagram, maybe it might be a time to look at at those accounts and see how many connections you have. How many of those connections do you talk to? how many of them do you actually converse in a very healthy conversation with? Are you just going on just to look at their pictures and send a quick like? Do they need to be there? So, maybe you do need to look at numbers, for example. And, one of the things is because things are like an addiction. So, for example, I have an Apple Watch and I want to close my ring. So you keep on looking at the numbers, you're looking at how many calories you're doing or how many steps you've done, and you feel as though you either need to match it or beat it. It's the same thing when it comes to platforms like Facebook or Instagram. But in that sense, instead of trying to reach for more steps or something, maybe you should look at, culling a lot of these things down and cutting back and just keeping the people that actually matter. Now, on the other stance, in terms of numbers, as I was saying, numbers are great when it comes to health. Are you reaching more steps? Are you standing enough? Are you drinking enough water? Those things are really, really great. So, make sure that you do use it. And, numbers can be a good thing. It can be a bad thing. But, that's another suggestion that I could say. Now, another cool thing is obviously in a work environment, and we're going to go back to the original topic about talking to people face to face. Maybe you should consider muting a couple of channels that aren't that important. So I know that on Slack there may be hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of actual channels, but which of those channels mean the most to you? Which of those are your daily drivers? Do you need to know everything? Is it important for you to know about something that you don't actually touch? So, again, it's there. Play around with the tools. See what functionality is there to help you consume data in a more healthier manner. Another thing here is obviously we're going back to work. Is if you're taking a holiday, take a holiday. Do not take your laptop with you. Do not take, your work phone with you, for example. The whole point of having a holiday is to disconnect and to have a detox, to let your mind rest. Because we are not machines that can go 24/7. We need to sleep. We need to relax. We need to unwind. It's healthier for us. It makes you think clearer. It makes you think outside the box. It makes you come up with new ideas. Maybe you've been struggling on a situation or a problem that you don't know how to resolve. And then all of a sudden, it just hits you because you've taken that break. You start thinking wider. Your mind is like a parachute at that point. So when you are taking your breaks, just make sure that you do hand over the work that you're doing to your colleagues so that they can continue the work, or if there's something that they need to be filled in about, just make sure that you do that and actually disconnect. And when you come back, just have a debriefing, just have something so that you can catch up and understand. And you never know, when you do take that break, that one problem that you were unable to solve may be something where you think, I can solve that right now. Also, the most important thing, and for me it's the most important thing, is be aware of the present. Be present now. So if you're listening to this podcast, just pause there for a minute. Let's pause together and let's look around what's around us. So, as I'm recording this, it's the hottest day in the UK, and I'm looking around and my dog is sat in front of the fan right now. But you just got to be present. The sun is shining, the sky is blue. Take in the colours. Appreciate the colours. Appreciate the people that are around you that you work with. Appreciate what you have in front of you. So I'm going to give it a minute from nowish and just have a look around. So that was our minute. Did you notice anything different? Anything new? Did you have a thought about something about, well, hang on a minute, could I fix this right now, or could I have done this differently? So one of the things that I'm going to say is just make sure you are part of the present. Appreciate what you have around you. So that's my views on it all. And like I said, I really wanted to share that with you all. Again, I want to say thank you to everybody that listens to our podcast. Thank you for the feedback. Thank you for telling us on how we could do better. I know that in the last podcast there was a slight glitch with the editing. That's completely my fault and not Mandeep's. But we do have our bloopers, so we do have to cut things out and stuff. So hopefully we'll have a blooper reel for you all at the end of the year. But like I said, feel free to reach out to us and email us, message us on LinkedIn. We are on there as well. Just reach out to us, give us your thoughts, give us your feedback. But I wanted to say a special thank you to listening to this podcast. And if there is anything you want to know more about, if you want to know more about these tools that are available, feel free to reach out to us.